He waved, then drove straight into the desert like he was following something only he could see. It was June 23rd, 2021. The Arizona heat was already settling in when Daniel Robinson, a 24-year-old geologist, clocked in for his job at a remote well site near Buckeye. It was a standard workday, but Daniel was anything but standard that morning. He was quiet. A coworker later recalled that Daniel spent about 15 minutes at the site, staring off, distant, and not acting like himself. Then, without a word, Daniel turned, walked to his blue 2017 Jeep Renegade, and got inside. He looked over, gave a small wave to his coworker, the last person to ever see him, and instead of driving toward the highway, he drove straight into the remote desert terrain. He never came back. His father, David Robinson, was quickly notified and immediately knew something was wrong. Daniel was responsible. He was dedicated to his work. He wouldn't just vanish. David rushed to Arizona and filed a missing person report with the Buckeye Police Department that very afternoon. The initial search began, covering the vast, unforgiving landscape. Days turned into weeks with no sign of Daniel. David, his father, was a military veteran, was tireless, organizing his own searches, refusing to wait for the police. Weeks later, his Jeep was found, but everything about it made the case even stranger. His crashed Jeep was found at the bottom of a ravine, with all of his stuff still inside. On July 19, 2021, nearly a month after Daniel vanished, a rancher made a chilling discovery. About 3 miles southwest of Daniel's job site, deep in the desert, his blue Jeep was found. It was flipped onto its side, resting at the bottom of a ravine. Police arrived, and the scene was immediately unsettling. Daniel wasn't there, but almost everything that belonged to him was still inside the wrecked vehicle. His phone, his wallet, complete with his ID and cash, his keys, and his clothes, including his boots. Outside the Jeep, a small pile of his other clothes and his work vest was found. The location itself was a major question mark. The rancher who found the vehicle claimed the area had been searched repeatedly in the preceding weeks. If the Jeep was there, it would have been spotted. This immediately suggested the vehicle was moved to the ravine after the initial searches. Buckeye police officially ruled the crash an accident and believed Daniel, disoriented or injured, had walked away from the scene into the extreme heat. But the lack of a body, the abandoned belongings, and the remote, hidden location of the vehicle created a devastating disconnect for his family. Police said the crash looked simple. A private investigator said the Jeep told a different story. According to the Jeep's data, the car didn't just crash, it kept moving. Daniel's father, David, refused to accept the police's simple conclusion. He knew he needed more than a hunch, so he hired an accident reconstruction expert, Jeff McGrath, to analyze the Jeep's black box, the internal data recorder that logs activity just before and after a crash. McGrath's findings were shocking and directly contradicted the police theory. The data revealed that the Jeep had multiple ignitions after the initial crash. According to his analysis, the vehicle had been driven for an additional 11 miles after the airbag deployed. This suggests the crash itself did not disable the vehicle, and someone, or Daniel, was operating it long after it should have been found. McGrath argued that the damage to the Jeep and the surrounding terrain were inconsistent with a single vehicle rollover accident. He concluded that the vehicle was not just crashed, but was likely driven to the ravine and staged there to look like an accident. Buckeye police firmly disagreed, saying McGrath had misinterpreted the complex data. They maintained their original assessment. The disagreement left a massive hole in the investigation. No one could agree on the critical piece of evidence: what actually happened to the Jeep. Was the crash caused by an accident? Was the Jeep placed there later? Or did Daniel, in a confused state, get back in and drive further into the desert before walking away? But even before Daniel vanished, something was clearly wrong. People close to him said he wasn't himself, like he was carrying something he didn't want to talk about. To understand what happened in the desert, you first have to look at the weeks leading up to June 23rd. Friends and family reported that Daniel had been acting oddly. They used words like off and distant. He had been texting a woman he barely knew dozens of times, an uncharacteristic level of obsessive communication. At one point, he drove to her house uninvited. When he was gently told to leave, he simply complied and drove away quietly. His father noticed it too. David said conversations with Daniel had long pauses, and his son seemed preoccupied and stressed, like he was carrying a heavy secret. Importantly, none of this behavior was violent, angry, or a signal of a massive conflict. It was quiet, internal confusion. Was he suffering from extreme stress at work? Was he struggling with his mental health? Was he experiencing the early effects of severe heat-related stress, which can cause intense disorientation and confusion? His unusual actions leading up to that day he vanished create two theories. Either he was already experiencing a serious mental health breakdown that led him to walk away, or his strange actions made him a target for foul play. The final piece of the puzzle is still missing: Daniel himself. But after months of searching, something else kept turning up in the desert, but it wasn't Daniel. Search teams kept finding human remains, but none of them were his. David Robinson's search effort became a major news story. He set up camp in the Arizona desert and organized teams of volunteers, relentlessly combing the area where Daniel was last seen and where the Jeep was found. The desert, however, was full of terrible secrets. During the extensive searches, investigators and volunteers found multiple sets of human remains that had nothing to do with Daniel's case. None of them were a match. The continuous discoveries highlighted the danger and isolation of the region, but offered no answer for Daniel. As of 2024 and even into 2025, the case remains officially open. Buckeye police say they are still actively receiving tips. They have found no confirmed sightings, no traceable remains, and no evidence that points definitely to one outcome. David Robinson and the family firmly believe foul play is involved, citing the staged appearance of the Jeep and the fact that Daniel would never abandon his life, his belongings, and his family. Police, however, state they have no proof of foul play, but they also have no proof Daniel walked away voluntarily. The truth is trapped somewhere between a bizarre accident and a sinister crime. So, what actually happened in the desert that morning? Every theory in the case sounds possible and impossible at the same time. The disappearance of Daniel Robinson is a true crime story with no satisfying conclusion. The facts on the ground can be twisted to support four major theories. First, the mental health break theory. Daniel was acting strangely. He was distant and preoccupied. He drove into the desert, perhaps suffered a further breakdown, crashed his car, and walked off into the heat, succumbing to the elements and never being found in the harsh terrain. Second, the accident and disorientation theory. He simply crashed his Jeep, suffered a head injury, and the resulting disorientation caused him to leave his essentials behind and wandered into the desert where he was lost forever. Third, the foul play and staged crash theory. Someone intercepted Daniel, possibly capitalizing on his confused state. They killed him or took him, and then placed the vehicle in the ravine to look like a simple accident to cover up the crime. This is supported by the private investigator's black box data. And finally, the heat-related confusion theory. The desert heat can cause extreme confusion and delirium. Daniel may have been suffering from the early stages of heat stroke when he drove off, leading to the bizarre behaviors and the eventual abandonment of the vehicle and his gear. None of these theories have enough evidence to be the final answer. Daniel Robinson left his job site and drove into a void. This is a case of a young man who drove into a mystery, leaving behind only the wreckage of his car and an impossible list of questions. If you have any information about Daniel Robinson's disappearance, please contact the Buckeye Police Department or the family tip line. And let me know your thoughts on the case below. Which theory do you find the most compelling? Thank you all for watching. Please press the like button and consider subscribing.